just love this keynote. Like.
Oh really?
theme.
Yeah, it's so nice. Andrew made
Andrew
it, right?
made it, yeah.
Andrew made it. It's pretty insane. Did you like talk to him or something?
Andrew, yeah. He loves it over there.
He really?
Yeah, he really likes
Oh my
it.
god.
Are you going? You're going back, aren't you?
I'm going back, yeah.
On Instagram or Facebook?
I told them I prefer Instagram, but we'll
Yeah.
see. Cause like apparently a lot of the teams are moving to the SF office, and
that'd be so nice.
I mean I don't want. I think it's like a lot of the people are in MPK.
Oh, the
I just want to like be there. I mean SF.
Yeah.
I also don't really like SF. I feel like SF is like a whack New York.
That's so true.
Honestly,
It's
it's
just a
so
whack New
true.
York. Yeah.
SF is such a whack New York. I don't like SF.
Yeah, I don't like
It's
SF.
not that like.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's like, it smells like pee.
It's just they have such a bad like.
Yeah.
Very
cleaning
bad.
problem.
Yeah. It's also just like really cold. I don't know why.
I know.
Yeah.
It's foggy. And
Yeah, it's just like
fall,
sad.
Like there's no seasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like kind of scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna hate it.
Oh, I don't need a mic, right? Or do I?
I use this. Hello. Wait, I gotta turn this on. Hello. Oh, yeah. You can like clip this
Testing.
into like your
Cool.
shirt or something.
Hello, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Hello?
I think yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, cool. This is very weird. It's super weird.
Super weird.
I don't know how I feel about this.
Are you gonna consider teaching the design course when Jason Sahil leaves?
I don't know, honestly. It's pretty cool, the course.
Yeah. Are you a TA for them too?
I like help out a little bit.
Okay.
Like don't have that much bandwidth to do both. But
Do you
yeah. it's
do you
really
like
cool.
design? I feel like a lot of people on design
Yeah, I heard some like weird stuff's going on.
Like, a lot of people on the
On design
doing
team?
design.
team. Yeah, like everyone's like doing PM or like I heard from like TJ that, like a lot more people on the design team are like business focused rather than just like pure visual design.
Yeah, I mean, I really like design for like figuring out like how to go about
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And I never really felt like I was really interested in like the visual part of it, and like but like you know like the interaction between things,
Yeah,
you know. And
yeah,
I felt that I was never gonna be that interested
Yeah.
in it, so I like decided to go a little bit more on the strategy side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like that's it. But like Jason, like he
Yeah,
really
Jason.
loves visual
Jason is
design.
like design.
Yeah, but no, I definitely appreciate it. I definitely still love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like
Try
always that part.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like over the summer, like half the team just decided to do PM. Everyone's a PM now.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
And like I always talk to like Sophie, and I was just like,
Oh yeah, she's
"What?"
PM.
Yeah, she's PM, and she was like on AppDev, I don't think she was ever a designer or a developer.
Yeah, she was
She's
just
just a-
PM.
Yeah.
She was recruited as a designer technically, but she just did PM.
Yeah, yeah.
It was interesting.
How's Young doing?
Young is good. He's what's he doing? He's just been really busy. He's like active, and then he also has this like whole acapella.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
true.
like really busy. He was away for the weekend in Boston. Yeah, Boston.
Yeah.
Came back yesterday. Really busy man.
Busy man.
We can wait like 2 minutes, I think.
How many people are still involved in the class?
I think 100, but I need to
there's still
check.
100 people?
I
That's pretty
think
good.
so. That's the last time I checked. Last time I checked was like a week and a half ago.
Like on Student Center? Or or
I was on CMS. I didn't check
on
since
CMS,
then.
it's 600. But I think enrollment, like people taking for credit, it's like 80.
It's still pretty good.
Yeah. We just need like 2 or 3 really good ones to get through.
Right.
I think we can start. Sure, you want? I think you can just come up here and talk about it.
So hey guys, my name is Shruti. I'm with Cornell App Dev and I'm part of the POLO app team, which you guys used in class last week. So once again, if anybody's interested in being a part of a user research group for POLO for extra credit, feel free to reach out to me at the end of class. I'll be sitting in the back right over there. Thank you.
Woo!
Cool.
Wait, did you start recording?
Yeah, I did. Cool. So you want to go this?
Yeah. Actually, can you give me the mic
yeah.
real quick? Hey guys. So just for some logistics, something new that we're gonna try to do is Google Hangouts office hours. So like, I know some people have can't make it to office hours since like most of it is on Sunday, and like some questions are like more difficult to solve just like online. So something we're gonna try is Google Hangouts. So we're gonna have like a
Book an appointment.
like you book an appointment and it's just gonna be like a 30-minute or like however long it takes Google Hangouts call where we just like talk to you and then help you solve your problem. And if you haven't already, check out the Piazza post regarding extensions for assignments. Yeah. Now we're gonna do some review. For those who have POLO, make sure you update the app. And if you don't have the code, this is the code. Okay, so this is going to be the first question. Does everyone see the question on that? I don't know.
Oh, there we go. Cool.
Yeah. On the bottom of the app, just like a join text field, just put in the code UQ0TRI. I'll give you like 10 more seconds. Okay, so the answer is actually, does anyone want to say the answer? Actually, you can see the results. Never mind. The answer is B. So just remember, pushing and popping versus presenting and dismissing. Pushing and popping deals with the navigation stack, so that's going to involve the navigation controller. Whereas presenting and dismissing just means bringing up a ViewController on top of the current one of your application. So that doesn't involve the navigation controller. And then next question. Does anyone want to tell me the answer? Yeah.
C.
Yeah. Do you want to explain sort of?
What delegation is?
Yeah.
Basically, you would set if you have ViewController A and ViewController B, and you want to pass information from controller B to controller A, you would set A as a delegate of controller B, delegate being some variable, and then you'd define a protocol for passing information. So it's a function that controller B would call on its delegate, and then that would be on controller A. So we'll call on controller A, and some action would happen with controller A.
Yeah, so like just like you guys did in your last assignment, if you have like your home view controller and then your red view controller, and we want something to happen when we dismiss, like when we click save, what we would do is in view controller, in the red view controller, we would have the delegate and then call the delegate dot like save button press or something, so that view controller A knows to change the title of the button. So it's essentially just passing information from a child view controller to a parent view controller. Any questions? Okay.
Cool. Hi everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Maya. I'm one of the TAs, and I'll be teaching TableViews. So, basically, what a TableView is, you guys have seen it in many apps, but maybe you just have never put the names to what you see. So it's really just a way of, it's a view controller that's presenting data in a scrollable list of multiple rows. So it's just when you scroll up and down, you'll see multiple kind of amounts of data in a row. And it's typically maybe divided into sections, and it could be either be plain or groups, so divided by a section header or not divided by section header, so just scrollable. And then plain is just like an unbroken list, while a grouped, as I said, just has the 6 sections, and then I'll show you kind of what that looks like. And then when you have an instance of a UITableView class, this is kind of what you will be programming today. And when you're kind of instantiating these types of things, you'll be having to program different delegate and data source methods to create a UITableView. So why would you use one? Typically, when you want to use a UITableView, you want to let users navigate through a hierarchical structure. So it's typically through an index list of items, so in either order of priority or alphabetically ordered, like in your iPhone contacts app. And it's also to display detailed information in distinct groupings, so grouping data by a header. And typically you can select these TableView cells, as you'll see in the next slide. And typically when you select one of these cells, you'll push another view controller onto the stack. Any questions so far? Cool. So here's some examples of what a TableView typically looks like. So like an iOS contact sheet, you'll see it's grouped by the letter of the name that corresponds to the first name. And then in Spotify songs, you'll see that it has typically the name of the songs, it has like this image detail label, and then you can tap on it to actually preview the song. So in terms of like this type of example, like what exactly is this table view? So as you see here, these are all UITableView cells. So in each of these UITableView cells, they have these things called UITableView cell objects. And so these are distinct views that display text, images, or other kinds of content. So I said here, you'll have the album name, the singer or songwriter, and then you can even tap on this or view more information about this. And typically you'll have multiple interactions within TableView cells. And when you actually interact with one of these cells, you will send a delegate. And so this response is based on when a user selects some distinct row within this TableView cell. And so that delegate is then passed the indexes of which row the actual cell is in. And then the delegate will actually locate that item in the data model and then perform whatever action you tell it to do. So in this particular TableView cell, when you click on one of these, you'll typically actually present the song as you see on Spotify, and you'll play the song. Any questions? Cool. But yeah, UITableView cells are really cool because they're very dynamic. You can really customize them in a lot of different ways. This is like really complicated stuff, but this is like some of the things that are really, really cool. And like you'll see that TableView cells are like seen across many different apps. Cool. So, why does it do that?
It's recording, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So if you have your starter code out, you can see that on your AppDelegate, you'll already have the UI window set up, and your root view controller will be your navigation controller, and then the root view will be your typical view controller. And then you'll see just make key invisible. This is all set up for you. And then this is kind of just like the mainframe of the view controller, which will be, we will be programming the UITableView controller on top of that view controller. So let's just quickly see what we will be programming. So this is what the final thing should look like, if you can see. So these are all the TableView cells. So each one will have the main label, which will be a dining hall name. It will have the rating. So this in case like moderate, bad, great, and good. And when you click on one of these TableView cells, you'll like have like a little heart next to it. So now we'll just be creating each of these cells within this TableView controller. So if you go to ViewController.swift, you'll see the file has some declared variables already kind of like made for you for the TableView. So for this, you'll have this instantiated TableView of this UITableView. So you're already instantiating it. You also have this list called cafeterias. So cafeterias we'll see in cafeteria.swift file. So if you quickly switch to that, this will be the Swift file that contains the class cafeteria. So in this cafeteria file, you'll see that you have the enum cafeteria rating, and so this will contain all of the cases that we'll see in the rating label on your TableView controller. And then you also have this class for each TableView cell, and this is what we're going to be using to actually declare all the names, the rating, and the favorite labels for the TableView cells. So this is kind of an easier way for you to instantiate every cell within the TableView, so ensuring that every table has the same data, and that you can instantiate it every time you create this UITableView controller. Any questions on that? So when you go back to your ViewController.swift file, you'll also see just the regular functions. You'll see view load. We're going to set up the list of objects of the cafeteria class, and we'll also initialize the TableView. You also see that we're going to be calling this setup constraints function. When we're doing this, we are just setting up kind of the, as you saw before, all of the layout constraints of the view. And we'll actually be overriding this later on to actually create the layout of each TableView cell. So as you saw, you'll have the name label and the detail label, and then on the right you'll have that heart. So it'll all be laid out in the same way for each cell. Okay, so let's switch to cafeteria TableView cell.swift. Everyone has this, right? Okay. So in your TableView cell file, you'll see that we all have labels declared for the TableView cell. So for each of these labels, we'll have the name label, we'll have the rating label, the heart image view, and then we'll also have these formatting options that are already done for you to just make it easier to just create all these cells individually. So when we have all of these name labels, we can initially go and instantiate all of these labels as part of each TableView cell. So in order to do that, we already initialized this thing called this reuse identifier. We'll be using that to call each time to create each cell in the TableView controller. So right now, let's just start to instantiate each name label. So for name label, we'll do name label, UI label, name label, dot translates, auto resize name. That's just because we're going to set this to false. We did before, it's because we're using auto layout restraints. And then for name label, dot font, this is just a styling option to use the default system font. And then of size, we'll set that to 14. And the next thing we'll do is the rating label. UI label, rating label. We'll do the same thing here and set this to false. Do the same thing for the fonts, of size 12. And this is for the heart. Good? Is good? Everyone can see this? Good? Okay. And then we're going to be doing the heart image view. Also, if you go into your quickly in the assets, XE assets folder, you'll see this like heart icon. You should all have that already in there. So we're just going to instantiate this image view. So to UI image view. And then we're going to create the image called UI image named heart. And then we're going to do the same thing for the auto layout. And then we're gonna do what we did before with like the Bill Gates image and do to scale aspect fit, so it fits directly in the cell. And then the heart image view dot is hidden equals to true. And this is hidden function is just so when, as I showed you before, when you first see the hearts on the screen, you won't see it unless you click on one of these cells. Cool. And then we're just going to add all of these subviews. So we're going to add name label. Rating label. And the heart image view. Cool. Any questions on any of these? Cool. Okay. Yeah. Question.
Why did we put content view dot add subview instead of just
Content view.
Like because we're in a different.
So this, I guess like you can explain this a little bit more, but I guess for my, like when you're thinking of adding just a regular subview on top of ViewController, so it's typically you're adding a sub for this TableView cell on top of the regular ViewController. Like typically that's how I think about it. And typically it's like a detail on top of that ViewController that you're adding it as a sub-label. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, because like a view controller, like a UI view controller has a view property, but this is not a view controller. This is a UITableView cell, and so the view instead is just called content view.
Any other questions? Okay. So then we have all of these other functions we need to complete to actually create each and every TableView cell within the UITableView. So right now I added here this to do. So we need to update the cell constraints for the labels and the image view. So the one thing we're going to do here is we're going to add NS layout constraints for each label. So the first thing we're going to do here is add NS layout constraint dot activate, and this will be an array of different details we're going to add for each label. So let's say for the first name label, we're going to add this leading anchor. This is kind of what we did before. This is all auto layout constraints, and we're going to add this to equal to content view, leading anchor with the constant padding that we added, like we saw that was already here. So this padding, all this formatting options, we're all adding that part of our auto layout here. So we're going to continue on. And then the top anchor is going to be another constraint. That's going to be equal to the content view top anchor with the same constant padding. And the last thing we're going to do is add the height of the name label, which is the same. And this is going to be equal to a constant. Oh, thank you.
I wondered why it wasn't changing color.
Oh, good one. And this would be the label height that we already instantiated in the beginning. So over there, the CG float 16. And this is kind of a way to, and you'll see that in this view controller, we had this setup constraints here. So here we're actually setting up the constraints for the whole UITableView. But we actually need to override this for each TableView cell. So each TableView cell has to have the same layout formatting, and so this way we can instantiate for every label. It will be look the same. So it would have the name label on the top, the detail label right underneath it, and the image view right on all the way on the right. So it's an easy way to kind of keep everything nice and neat. So then we'll have, yeah.
So is that function is from the UITableView cell class?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you're just overriding it to update the constraints for each TableView cell.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
Any questions on that? What he just asked? Everyone hear what he just asked? Okay. The next thing we're going to do is do the same exact thing for the next ones. So for all the other labels that are going to be within each TableView cell. So the next one would be the rating label. And this one is dependent on the name label since it's right underneath it. And then we'll have its top anchor as well. And the same constraint for the height. Cool. Next one, last one is going to do for the image view. So do the same thing. And this would be, since it's going to be all on the right, it needs to be the trailing anchor equal to that initial content view trailing anchor.
You're missing the dot constraint. You only need your dot constraint.
Thank you. Cool. Heart image view. Next one would be the center Y anchor. So it could be right in the middle of the TableView cell. And this would be equal to that center Y anchor. Then we're just going to need to do the height and the width as the last part. And this would be equal to the constant of the heart image height that we already have as a variable. And then the width anchor equal to the constant of the heart image width. And because I told you before, since we're overriding this from the update constraints, we're just going to call super.update constraints. So we can update that for the full TableView cell. Cool, and as I said before, so we have this class cafeteria, so we need to configure each label to have that data for each TableView cell dependent on the data that we have for each attribute in the cafeteria class. So here we're just going to have that the name label dot text is going to be the cafeteria.name. Since we know that the name label, the main label is going to be the cafeteria, and then the detail label is going to be actually the rating of whether or not it's moderate, good, great, or bad. And then the same thing for the rating label. It's going to be rating. And for this one, we have this helper method right here called getStringFormRating. And this will transform that case, that enum that we saw, into a representation of a string, so we can automatically add that to the TableView cell. So we're just going to call getStringFromRating cafeteria.rating. Questions on that? Okay. So then we'll have this heart interaction. So as I said before, when you tap on a TableView cell, you can have this heart that appears on the right. So the way we'll do this is we'll have this heart image view. So whenever this is going to be toggled, we're going to toggle this is hidden attribute function of heart image view. And then we are going to check whether or not it will have the label is favorite. And you'll see here that in the class cafeteria you have this variable called isFavorite, and it's a boolean, so it'll return either true or false for whether or not the cafeteria is actually going to be a favorited and when you click on it. So we're going to talk about that. Cool. So this is how you instantiate the TableView cell and all the data within it. So now we're going to kind of go to the next part of this and go into our ViewController and initialize all of that data to be presented on the actual UITableView. So if you guys could all go to your ViewController file, and then here you're going to see that we have always this TableView instantiated as a UITableView. We have this list of cafeteria class objects. We have the read identifier that we're going to be using in our TableView for our delegates and our data source. And so now in the view did load, we have to set up all the list of objects of the cafeteria class. Okay, so the way to do this is that first, let's just add a title to our UI view controller, which is going to be called cafeterias. Let's set a background color to .white. And let's instantiate all of the variables that we're going to have as a list view. And then this is basically going to be a list of all these cafeteria objects that we're eventually going to migrate towards each cell on the screen. So each of these cafeteria objects needs, as you can see here, a name and a rating. So the name here is going to be Appel, and the rating is going to be .moderate. And let's do the same thing for our PCC. Rating .moderate. Let's do the same thing for Risley. Rating .bad. Let Becker equals. It's not that good. Becker, let me guess, everyone believes here it's great. Let Cook equals cafeteria name Cook rating dot good. Let oops. So then we're just going to have this list view of all the cafeterias, and then the way you just instantiate it is just put everything in here. RPCC, Risley, Becker, Cook. So this is going to be all our objects in our TableView cell that we're going to display. So the next part is actually we need to initialize the actual TableView. So as we said here, we already have this TableView variable. So just the way that we're going to put everything together is we're actually going to create the actual TableView by just saying that it's a UI TableView with a frame .0. That's typically the default. TableView that translates auto mask resizing. As we said, we just put this to false since it's an auto layout. And then TableView.delegate equals self. Really quick, let me put TableView. It's also self. So because we're saying, so basically what this means is that when you have a delegate and your data source, you're basically telling the program that you are going to be creating the protocols that you need to be computing in order to make a table view. So if you see up here, you see like I have an error right here that says type ViewController does not conform to protocol UITableView data source. So you want to add protocol subs. That basically means that because we have this ViewController as an instance of a UITableView delegate and UITableView data source, we need, in order to create this ViewController as a UITableView controller, we need to ensure and actually input the functions in order to be creating that. So that's why we're saying that TableView.delegate equals self and data source equals self, because we are going to be the ones that are going to be programming the functions to create this table view. Any questions on that? Okay. And then we're just going to say that we register the cafeteria TableView cell. For cell. then the same thing again, we're going to add the subview of TableView. Okay. And as I said before, we already have the constraints for the actual table view. But the next things we do need to do is create these data source methods and delegate methods. So these are kind of what is going to happen when you actually create each cell. As you can see here, we need to program this cell for row at function, and we need to create this number of rows in section, as well as a delegate. So these are the methods that you're going to be calling when a user selects one of those TableView cells. So usually when you select one of those cells, it'll push a new ViewController, or in our case, it will present that image of the heart. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to create this cell for row at. You can literally just write cell for row at and then press enter, and then it will create this step for you where you can just input the code. It's just like a really easy way so you don't have to like write all of the header up. So we're going to instantiate every cell. So let cell equals TableView dot DQ is the cell with identifier, this reuse identifier. And then for index path as our cafeteria TableView cell. And then each cafeteria is going to be instantiated as an index in the list of cafeterias we have at the index path of the row. So this is how we're getting each row of the TableView cell, and we're ensuring that every index has its place within the full list of TableView cells of cafeterias. And then this will have a configured of this for cafeteria class that we already have. So each cell is an object and of an instance of this cafeteria class that we're configuring based on the data that we've already collected. And then cell that set needs update constraints. So we're going to be calling that already updated constraints that we configured. So each cell has its auto layout guide that's different from the original UITableView. And then cell.selection style is none, and this just means that we don't really have any particular selection style when you click on one of those. And this one is really easy. We just want to figure out how many actually rows we're going to be creating. So you're just going to do the same thing you did here. So just type in number of sections. Wait, this should be number of rows and sections. Yeah, number of rows and sections, not number of sections. And then here it's really simple. You just return cafeterias. Why is it doing this? Cafeterias.count. And this is just making sure that we actually know how many are in this list. And so the number of rows is just simply the full is this variable that we already had here. Sorry, up there.
Lowercase the cafeteria for configure. So it's not the class.
Oh, sorry. For cafeterias? Yeah. And then this would just be the return of the cafeterias.count. It's same from here, this list here. Okay, and now we need, yeah.
What does configure do?
Where is configure?
Cell.configure.
Yeah, so I typically don't use this, but can you go ahead and explain?
Yeah, so basically, if you go to your like TableView cell class, in the configure method, if you see this configured for cafeteria, basically since you have like a different name and a different like rating for each cafeteria, you want to set the like UI views or UI labels on your TableView cells differently for each cafeteria. So this is basically like a helper function that just sets the text based on the name that you give it and like the rating you give it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next ones you're going to do after that is just the delegate methods. And so this basically kind of takes care of everything that happens when you're actually interacting with the TableView cell. So let's say for this one, we're going to do a height for row at. And these are all the main delegate functions that you need when you're actually instantializing any TableView. So for this one, we're going to do the same thing we did above, but for the TableView cell, dot cell for row at, and then we're going to have this be lowercase index path as the cafeteria TableView cell, so of that. And then
I think I just returned it.
for height,
Yeah.
no, this is when you like,
Is it auto resizing?
oh, sorry, you're totally right. I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry, when you are, for this function, you're only going to be turning actually the height of the TableView cell. I was looking at did select row. When you're did selecting the row at, then you'll be actually implementing what cell you're actually creating. But for this one, you're just going to return the cell height. And for this one, why don't you do the same thing? Did select row at. And for this, you're going to be having the let cell TableView dot cell for row at. Same thing I was doing above for the index path as the cafeteria TableView cell. And you're going to have let cafeteria is going to be the cafeteria's index path at row. So this was that list of cafeteria objects within TableView cell, and then you're just going to associate it with the index path at the row you're at. And for this one, this is when we're going to be doing whether or not it's a favorite. So this is where when you click on one of the TableView cells, we're going to present the heart. So if it's a favorite, we call on this is favorite. And we're going to toggle the heart for this cafeteria object that we're on. Cool. Any questions so far on these functions over here?
Could you explain the let cell line a little bit confused what that's doing?
This one here?
Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah. So for this one, so because we're having this like did select row at function, this is making sure, this is like kind of like the delegate of what happens when you actually like click on one of these cells. And so typically when in this function, when you guys are programming your own TableView cells, you'll typically use this function for whenever you want to interact with a heart. A heart will press when you did select on one of the rows in the TableView cell, or push a new ViewController when you click on one of these things. So whatever this is doing is basically taking that index of the cell within the list of cafeterias. So because right now, if you think about it, all of these TableView cell objects are objects part of that list of cafeterias. So when you're actually just taking that cell, you're just creating a variable with the index of wherever that variable is and pushing it to the delegate that needs that index. And in this case, we need the index of that object within the cafeteria's list. And so it's just another way of getting that index of whatever object within the TableView cell you're using and kind of inputting it into this is favorite function. So ensuring that whenever you click on one of these hearts, it's on a PEL and not our PCC TableView cell.
And then if you didn't have the as, would it just make it a regular UITableView cell?
So we add the as because we have this this separate view for that's whenever you're creating this new cell within the TableView cell, it's an instance of this TableView cell. So it's basically saying this cell is going to have the same name label, detail label, and the same functionality as all the other cells within the TableView cell.
And then default, is it usually just like a regular TableView cell?
You typically, this is required. You typically always need that separate as an instance of some TableView cell class. Yeah. Yeah.
Does the as always come with the exclamation mark?
Yeah, always. What's going on?
The reason we have the exclamation point with the as is because we know that the cell that we're going to be using is the cafeteria TableView cell, so we know that any cell we get
Wait, I think
is
it's
going to
uppercase.
be a cafeteria TableView cell. So that's why we can use exclamation point. But if our TableView had
This one?
two different kinds of cells, you would have to you wouldn't be able to use exclamation
keep the colon.
because you wouldn't know which type of cell you're using. But in this case, we
Oh,
only
okay.
have one type
Got
of
it.
cell, so you can always use that exclamation point.
Oh wait, no. For string. Oh no, it is for. No, yeah, this is for cell. Yeah. Sorry, it should be for cell reuse identifier if you got that change. Okay. Cool. What is this? Oh, return cell, sorry. Oh yeah, sorry. When on this cell format, so here, where we implemented that the cell is going to be some cafeteria within the list, we always need to return the actual cell so the delegate knows that you're actually creating this cell within the table view. Any questions on any part over here, actually creating the table view cell, or going over creating each cell within each row?
This might be a dumb question. I thought that you wanted to keep the model separate from the view so that you can reuse view elements later if you want to. What does that look like? Or are we gonna cover that in a later lecture? Or what's...
So this is actually a really good example of how the UI elements are being reused, and the model is separate. Because the TableView cell, if you notice, doesn't hold on to a cafeteria object. There's no variable that has like cafeteria, like type like cafeteria. This is because you have that helper function that uses the input class cafeteria and uses it to update the same label and the same like UI elements, like the UI text fields or like the UI labels or whatever, for every single cafeteria that you encounter. Also, the reason why we dequeue reusable cells is that, for example, let's say you have like 1,000 cafeterias, and so scrolling through that and creating a new cell for every single cafeteria would take up like a lot of like processing power because it takes up a lot of time to like create every single view that's on your iPhone. So how iOS like deals with that is that you typically only have a fixed number of cells, and as soon as a view starts going off the screen, this function is going to be called, so that the same TableView cells can be reused for different things that you want to see on screen. So this is really cool because it saves your like phone from like overheating and like going into overdrive if you have like 1,000 things that you want to display and you're scrolling past them.
Yeah, and also we were saying before about how we're implementing these kind of required functions when you're saying that the TableView Delegate is itself. So basically you're saying that, as I said, you're going to be creating these functions within this view. So as you're creating the actual table view, you're actually instantiating all of the data that's going into the table view cell. And so that's why we implemented these functions here. So we're implementing that the data source, we're actually inputting the cells within this as a data source. So we're all coding this up instead of it being on an outside controller. That's going to be kind of delegating that data to the view. So it's all within kind of like one program here. So, Mindy, you want to explain that again then?
Yeah, so the reuse identifier is basically you want a reuse identifier for every single TableView cell that you use in a single table view. So, like in some applications, you'll see that there are multiple types of TableView cells in one table view. And so that's why you'd want two different identifiers to keep track of which table view is associated with which identifier. So the table view knows like, oh, I just saw a cafeteria table view cell go off the screen, but I need to present a new cafeteria table view cell coming up from the bottom. It will know based on the reuse identifier which one to pick. So in the future, maybe you'll come across this when you work on your final project or something, but you'll need like a reuse identifier for every single type of UI table view cell inside your table view.
Cool. Let's run this really quick. Everyone good on how it's working? Cool. Yeah, so here we are. We have the title of cafeterias. We have the main name labels with details, and gotta fix that. Yeah, as you can see, my padding is off. Let me fix that. So I'm just gonna put here padding times -1. So this is how you just went into the cafeteria table view cell function, and you can just multiply by -1, and it'll move back. Cool. So as you can see, I think table views are pretty interesting, and you'll see that whenever you're implementing TableView Cell, it will kind of be, formulaic, where you always have to implement the same functions for every table view. Kind of like the matter is just how much you want to customize it and kind of where you want this table view to land at the end. So whenever you click on one of those table views, as I said before, typically you'll go into another view controller, you'll maybe pop up a modal. So there's really different things that you can do with a table view, and kind of like all of these separate cells, they don't actually just have to be, this width. They can be rounded. You'll see a lot of times it's like different cards. So there's typically a lot of things you can do, and it's really the same kind of foundation framework from this view controller here, as you can see, with all the self for row at, number of rows in section, height for row at, and did select row at. Yeah. Questions? Yeah. So typically you'll have, so like for this one here, like at index path, like that is basically telling the table view whatever object that index is. So if you see like a regular list, you'll know, typically when you want to find the index of it, that's where the index is of this object in the list. That's really the same thing. It's just of an instance of a UITableView cell.
Any other questions? Just bring up the lecture slide for project 4. Yeah, so the last thing is just project 4 should be out, and it's going to be due on Sunday. If you guys have any questions, post on Piazza, or we're actually going to, or I'll try to hold office hours on non-Sundays, just because I know some people can't make it on Sunday. So we'll do that. Yeah, that's it for today. You can come up if you have any questions. You can stop recording.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. That was a lot of talking. I did not realize how much talking that was. And my ear hurts so much. I don't know why.
Your ear?
Yeah.